Why God? Hi everybody, Brandon Bradshaw Strength and Recovery. Today we're on the pillar of faith, talking about what it's like to go through something and depend on God and truly depend on Him and trust Him even when things don't seem like they're working out. It's really easy to trust Him when everything's going right, everything's falling into place for you. When things are difficult, when you're facing trials, whether it's sickness, illness, financial strain, just basically unanswered prayers, it could be a simple, I want a raise, I want a promotion, just basic things, and you just can't get anywhere. That door just doesn't seem to be opening. It's tough. That's when you really have to dig deep and trust your Father. Trust Him in heaven that has everything laid out for you. And sometimes that favor that He has for you is actually more difficulty. And with that, like I say, I jump back to truly believing. Like I say, I rest in that scripture from James a lot. I meditate on that a lot. That through these trials is producing a character in you and a perseverance in you. And what I wanted to share with that was a personal story so that we can tie this, to something tangible in my own experience. So, as I've shared before, and I will continue to share because it's a strong part of my testimony, is that during my time in prison, which I was there for driving while intoxicated, it was not my first time being arrested for that. By the grace of God, I never actually have had an accident or injured anyone, but I was just simply foolish, and over the years allowed myself to pick up multiple offenses in this area due to my alcoholism. At this point, and rightfully so, they are very strict about that. And with that being said, I ended up getting sentenced to 4 years in prison. I thought for sure, I'd go in. The offense happened in the year 2020. I stayed out on bond for 2 years due to COVID, and court dates were postponed and postponed. And I kept thinking, I'm building a good track record here. I really started to change my life at that point, turning away from alcohol, starting to look for a better way. I actually, on my own accord, started going to celebrate recovery meetings, things of this nature. I ended up getting with a wonderful woman who, is just the love of my life, truly is. And our kids, similar age frame, everything, just God was just putting things into place for me. And, I just had this hope that somehow I could get out of this, or I could, get an attorney that would somehow get this case dismissed. Look how long ago it's been. Look what he's doing now, so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, you have to live up, you have to pay your dues, and you have to deal with the consequences of your actions. So with that being said, there was no way around it. This was my second time committing a felony DWI, and I was going to prison. So with that being said, here it is, 2 years later from the date of the offense, like I've stated, and I go into court. I sign on 4 years. I tell everyone, I'll be home 6 months to a year. I'll make my first parole. I don't have any other history that would, that I would deem them needing to keep me in prison for this whole 4 years, or so on and so forth. And so I went into it very hopeful that this is what's going to happen. I'm going to go in there and do a quick turnaround. I got into prison, and I did everything right, everything within my power. It is a very, very hostile, very hard conditioned place to be. I mean, obviously, it's prison. It's prison for a reason. I won't even get into the politics of why and how I believe that our justice system is flawed, and the way that everything within the Texas Department of Criminal Justice operates, and how they treat their inmates, from the way that they're classified, who you're housed with. It's a mess. And you really do get put in some very, very difficult, possibly life-threatening situations. Here I am, somebody that's in there for a misdemeanor crime that is enhanced to a felony because it has been committed in multiple times. But, at the end of the day, I was in there for a substance abuse problem. And I'm housed right next to a guy that robbed an old lady at the Holiday Unit in Huntsville, Texas, to be specific. And when you go through that initial intake, you don't know who your neighbor is. They just lump everybody, unless you are a high profile, truly some type of serial killer, you're violent from the moment you hit the intake. Yes, of course, they will put you in segregation. They will keep you away from that general population. But there are some people with some very serious crimes all being housed right next to the guy, some 19-year-old kid that had a felony marijuana arrest, first time ever in prison. It's just, to me, once again, I digress. Like I said, I don't want to get into the politics of all of that, but just to paint a picture of how it is. With that being said, I stayed out of the politics of prison. I did not get affiliated with any type of gang. I stayed completely solo. I used to tell people I'm an army of one, trusting in God. By the grace of God, I've always had a good, sense of communication, common sense about me. I give everybody respect, treat me with respect, I treat you with respect. So in the way that I carried myself and ultimately God's favor on me, I never had an issue. I never had any major confrontations. In prison, of course, you're going to bump heads with someone eventually. But ultimately, I was always able to defuse the situation while keeping my integrity, while keeping respect for myself. And with that being said, as I walk through this journey, I come up for parole for the first time. I'm at a different unit, and I've done everything. I'm attending classes within the system. I've no disciplinary cases or anything. Good track record. High hopes. I get denied parole. Of course, this time I say to myself, God, I understand. I gotta, once again, I have to accept the fact that I've placed myself into this system, and I have to deal with it. Please have favor on me going forward. Now, keep in mind, I'm with my new girlfriend, who very serious relationship, living together. Kids, once again, her daughter, her children are like my children. Mine are like, my daughter is like her daughter. Constant contact. We miss each other terribly. I'm now trying to, co-parent, father through the telephone, so on and so forth. Visits, letters. I'm doing everything that I can. It was tough, I get through that whole year, or actually about 7 months of that, and into that first year set off, as they call it in prison when you get denied parole. And I go into my DWI recovery program. I was actually administratively placed into a 6-month program, which is a DWI program. And this was right before, about 6 months before my next parole review, and or what they call your mandatory discretionary release. So therefore, they say mandatory, but due to some events way back, they changed that. Although it says mandatory, they still vote on it. So it's basically when you're about halfway through your sentence, they evaluate you at that time, regardless of your parole status. But I was actually eligible for both parole and my mandatory discretionary vote. Right as I'm finishing the 6-month program for the DWI, plus I have finished a 3-month program called the Changes program, cognitive skills, things like that. Totally walking the line. I'm the highest level trustee that you can be, an S2 in the system. I can work outside the gates, all of this. Huge family support. I get denied again. And you talk about your heart just sinking. I could feel the stress in my girlfriend's voice, in my children's voice, the pain. We all had such high hopes. And I, at that point, was angry. I truly was. I had to really dig deep and think about, why God? Why is this happening? And I would tell my girl on the phone, like, baby, I don't understand this. Like, what else? I can't get anything else out of this experience. Like, at one point it's about discipline. I was physically working out, burpees, 300 every other day. I'm doing crazy workouts, reading my Bible, studying, just everything that I can. Had massive amounts of books sent in, and I'm studying all this stuff, and it was almost like this kind of Karate Kid type thing where, once I was finally out, I realized, oh wow, this, and this actually led to this massive amount of skill and knowledge that I would not have possessed otherwise. So I'm very grateful. But in the moment, in that fire, in that process of refining, very, very difficult. But like I said, you have to keep faith. You have to believe that there is a purpose in what you're going through. With that said, I finally got released, and it was very emotional. I got out and I got home, and then I realized, like, wow, now it's time to really, practice, put my money where my mouth is, as they say, walk it like I talk it, as they say. And I'm doing that. That I can hold my head high and say that from the time that I've got released, I mean, I do everything that I can. I'm not shy. Obviously, here I am on a worldwide platform, speaking to everyone that will listen, giving you my testimony, my account of how God has intervened and truly changed my life. But that wouldn't have been possible if I would have not been receptive to His word. A huge part of this was in my anger. If you go to the book of Psalms and you listen to David, when he would get granted these, massive victories, it would be praise you, Jesus, everything, praise you, God, for everything that's happening. And then you turn around and he hits a calamity, and it's, oh Lord, I tear my clothes, I mourn, where are you, God? Have you forsaken me? We all go through that. David was called a man after God's own heart, and he still had those struggles. So don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up when you get down, when you think about, you question God. You question, what's the purpose in this? We're human. Hopefully over time, if you're truly opening that door and seeking through a spirit of discernment His will for your life, and you are willing to go through the difficulties and keeping faith and trust that the outcome is going to work in your favor, you'll get there. You absolutely will get there. Like I say, I would reflect back to the book of James. I would reflect back to Galatians, and just know that you will reap in due season if you do not give up. I'm Brandon Bradshaw, Bradshaw Strength and Recovery. Stay strong, stay sober, and I'll see you again soon.